Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? I'm a little tired today. It's a little chilly today, but I'm here and I'm awake. Thanks for letting me have yesterday morning off. I needed that one. The election ran really late, and I got things to do after the show and get ready for the next show and all that good stuff. So thank you very much for allowing me to play a little hooky yesterday. I appreciate that. I did notice that a lot of you did see my notice on my message on Twitter, so I think that might be a good way to do it. And I also will pop it into the YouTube community one as well to put a note there if I need to do that again. Of course, I'm going to push it super hard and not cancel any shows at any point ever. But that election was long and I was tired and I really wanted to be my best for Randy. So thank you very much for understanding that. Good morning, Ellen. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. You're first, and it's pretty quiet this morning. Maybe that's what happens when you skip an episode. Pretty quiet, but that's cool. So Ellen, you know that we like to tell the truth around here, right? I got a cool gift for Father's Day. See that? Pretty neat, huh? Couple cubs, supposed to represent my boys, and that little black bear is supposed to represent me. But we like truth, don't we, Ellen? So what does that mean? Well, I looked at that and I'm a nature guy. I understand nature. And I looked at that and said, well, wait a minute. Either I'm a female bear or those bears are in trouble. Because male bears, they kill the cubs. What the male bear will be doing is to remove the cubs in order to breed. So if this is meant to be male, these cubs are in trouble. That's what I'm trying to say. These cubs are in trouble because a male bear will absolutely try to destroy them. So I let my wife know that this morning, and I got the deer in headlights look. She's like, right. Well, it's a gift that's meant to be your boys and you. So we'll say yes. That's what this is. This is the only male bear who stuck around to raise the cubs and do that because he's a different type of bear. So maybe that's what the message is. I'm a different type of dude. So there we go. That was my Father's Day gift. My two little cubs. They're either climbing for their lives or they're having a good time. I'm not quite sure. But thank you very much. And if you notice, I put up a picture of my airplane. So this was the picture. This was the airplane I sold in order to do what we're doing. But that's what I learned to fly on, and I did a lot of cross country in that, and it was a good plane. 1966. So you maintain the planes quite well in order to keep them in the air, and yeah, they last a long time. They're aluminum, so they don't really rust and stuff. Good morning, Azaria. How you doing, buddy? Second. Yep, you're second. You're second. And Ellen was enjoying that. But what did you think about the story? Huh? It's either chasing them up. Well, I think you decided. Trans bear? Really, Ellen? It's that early. Come on. Trans bear? It's a fluid bear. Oh, maybe it's a deer today. Moose the next day. Oh, one of those worlds. Good morning, Prairie. There, you got to take morning and not afternoon. Good morning, Prairie. Like to see you at both shows. It's pretty good. And it's because of you and Ellen and Azario and others that I changed the format of this show to be all talk, and we don't play the video again because you can watch it. So we're going to give you a lot more chat. I don't see Clay in the chat yet, so I'm going to get that coffee in me while I can. And Azario's got a happy smile. Some big eyes on that little smile there. Got the caffeine going, nice and wired. And then Padge has got a little smile. Little tiny little smile. Hey, Padge. I tried to get her on the show today. She didn't want to come on the show today. And for John, there goes one of the dogs. Oh, boy. Oh, there's a deer in my yard. Both dogs are just chasing it right now. I wish they would do that with the foxes. But yeah, they just chased a deer away. Welcome to the bush. That's pretty cool. Cessnas are very comfortable to fly. I like a couch. Good visual compared to low wing. Yeah, so you've been in the planes before, Ellen. It is great. My wife, kind of after the boys, her stomach doesn't handle it so well, so that's too bad. And but yeah, you got the wings above you. You can see all around. And I took up a couple of friends, and one friend was really, really scared because I told him we had traffic on our little panel, and you could see airplanes all over the place. And he's like, "Oh, that one's coming for us." But it's underneath us. So we got to watch the airplane go underneath us, and he was freaking out. I was like, "Do they see us? Do they see us?" I'm like, "Yeah. We trained for this." It's a lot of fun. But what did you get into? A Cessna 152, 150, 172, 182. What did you fly in, Alan? And Kevin popped up and then dropped. So we'll wait for him to pop back up. Oh, there he is. Oh, there's the top of his head. And there we go. So let me go ahead and bring Kevin. Hey, buddy. Bonjour, monsieur. Comment ça va?
Bonjour, ça va bien, toi?
Ah, oui. So yeah, you already found some news this morning, Mr. Gov Corrupt. And did you like my tweet yesterday? So apparently the Gov is corrupt. Who knew? Who knew?
I know, right?
Yeah, you like that episode. I'm sure you're on the other end going, Jay, come on, we know this.
Yeah, like everything that Randy was talking about was basically the reasons why I decided to, take up the political affiliation that I did, which is, completely against the government in all of it's all of its institutions and basically everything that it does. I'm completely opposed to it because I know they're morally and intellectually bankrupt.
Yeah, like it really caught me by surprise to hear Randy say all leader elections are rigged and like the whole thing is rigged. Like there's nothing about it that's genuine. And that's, yeah, that was a big splash in the face because I knew there was corruption. I would expect certain ones to have it, but the entire thing all the time.
It's all corrupt.
Like, yep.
It's all corrupt.
And what was one of the more shocking things that you heard from him, if anything? Because there's a few for me.
Nothing was really shocking from where he was talking about, pedophiles run the education system.
Exactly,
yeah. And I brought an article to light as he was talking about that. And the ex-deputy education minister under Kathleen Wynne, Benjamin Levin, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison for child pornography charges, right? And this was back in, this had to have been about 2015, because this was before, Ford's reign. And he was in charge of creating the curriculum. Ontario curriculum, right? So if it was rampant back then, it's just even worse right now.
That is scary to hear that. Like the bunch of curriculum was generated by this man, and then we find out that he's not a good man, and he's actually one of the worst types of men. And we pulled all the curriculum and cleaned it out, right?
No, not really. Like Stephen Lecce kind of took over for Ford, but they didn't really roll back anything. They try to do, the government when they do their rollbacks, and so they take like 5 steps forward and then take 1 or 2 steps back, right? So they never completely roll back any programs that the previous administration does or like institutes, and then if they do, the next government brings it back to the table, right? So.
And you're saying this was under Wynne?
Yeah, this was under Kathleen Wynne. So I think it was like 2015 or something around that lines, 2015, 2016.
And do you think her sexuality had anything to do with this curriculum change?
I don't know about that. Like, I don't really focus in on people's sexuality. Like, that's not really a topic of interest to me. But what is a topic of interest to me is when people try to force their views onto others, whether it be like sexuality or race or basically anything. So, like, I'm a live and let live kind of guy. Like, you do your thing, let me do my thing. I won't bother you. You don't bother me. But when you try to impose your lifestyle on me, that's where I have a problem.
Absolutely, and I would 100% agree with that. So a little question for you. You don't have kids, right?
No.
Right, but this indoctrination of children really upsets you anyways.
Well, of course,
those are one of those issues.
Yeah, it should upset everyone because, they're going after the most vulnerable people in society, right? And they can't protect themselves, and they're basically defenseless against this machine that is, rigged or programmed to attack them, and I think that's wrong.
Right. So your philosophy is live and let live, with a caveat of don't harm the children.
Yeah, like that is, yeah, like people have to stand up for like the defenseless in society. Like, I don't know who said it. It was a famous quote, said, "We don't judge society by the success success of
The
millionaires
wealthy.
and billionaires, the wealthy, but judge it by how they treat the defenseless, the elderly and the youth. And if we take a look, especially over the last 3 years, it just shows that we're morally bankrupt, because those are the people that we really targeted the most, were the defenseless, right? Like my grandfather, he was locked in his room for 6 or 9 months from COVID. They did the lockdowns in the seniors residence, and with the children, they forced them to wear masks on their face. They canceled extracurricular activities, basically what they were doing is and they said it was for safety. It's never for safety. So ultimately what they were doing is they were programming them into compliance and into obedience, right? Like in the 1700s, slave owners would put masks on their slaves' faces as a symbol to take away their voices, right? So that's the symbolism behind masks, is to take away people's voices.
Right, to hide them and get rid of the societal connection with smiles, and people start looking away because they really don't want to see that kind of thing either. Like, there's a whole bunch of psychological things that kick in when you start doing that, and it's also why I think some places do that by force to their women as well. I think that saying that you mentioned there might have been from the Bible, kind of just changed through time, but I think there's a passage in there about it's not the rich, it's how you take care of the poor. And I just want to say hi to Ellen here, because she's letting us know that she flew the 152 and the Piper Error. I wanted to get into a Piper. Sorry, Ellen, I didn't get a chance to do that yet, but maybe one day. So one of the items from Randy that really, I honestly didn't know, and I didn't even suspect it, was the youth arm being something that's not fun. So that's the first time, honestly, I've ever heard that accusation or that clarification or whatever it is. Have you heard that one before?
Sorry, I'm not too sure what you're talking about. I didn't catch the whole interview. I caught about 60% of it.
Sure. So part of the other 40% was he was mentioning how the youth arm of the Conservative Party is a playground for the older guys.
So like the people that are just brought into the party itself.
Right.
Yeah,
the youth arm.
yeah. So that's kind of like if you take a look at high school, right? Like your grade 9s and 10s, they're pretty much the playground for the seniors, right? So it's kind of no different than any way a collectivist system is working. The younger guys are always going to be targeted by the older guys just for fun. And if
no, he meant more than fun. He meant inappropriately.
Oh yeah, sure.
Because we got into the priest side of things too, because this was something I didn't hear before. I didn't hear that that activity, and it's not pedophilia because these are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, but he said that was part of the rite of passage, basically, that you're gonna have to go through that. That's just how it is. And I was really surprised by that part of the conversation.
So that's kind of like the Harvey Weinstein scenario, right?
The power position. Yeah, people want to climb that ladder and do anything for it. Yeah, I understand the environment. I was just surprised to hear that actually happens here.
Yeah, it's not what you do to you sleep with, right? Sexual favors.
That's right. That's what he was saying. Yep.
Yeah, and it just shows how morally bankrupt this society really is, because you're leveraging somebody who's at that point in time, in their position, like the people that are coming into a party, they want to make an impact, and they really want to be able to spread their message and their ideas. And then you have the people that are there saying, okay, the only way you can do that is if you do A, B, and C, right? And it's just a highly manipulative tactic. Yeah, it's horrible.
When I was starting this journey, one of the first people I reached out to was my local MP, the Conservative Party MP, Gerald, and I get his name wrong, Soroka, but Gerald, we'll just call him Gerald. And I reach out to him and I'm like, hey, I'm this dude. I know law, I know tech, I know project management, I know all this stuff, and I really am interested in helping you make sure the Liberal Party gets out and we don't get them back in. We had a really long conversation and he really enjoyed that one. But it got weird at the end when I said, hey, is there any way for me to get involved with you? Like even volunteer? Because I'm the type of guy that once I get into the kitchen and do the dishes, I could become a manager within a year. So as long as I get in, I could show them what I'm doing. So that was my plan. And he made it really awkward by saying along the lines, that I don't know how to bring you in at this age, was basically where that conversation was. There's no funnel for people to come into the party and become political once you're experienced and moved on. But now that I hear this part of that story, I'm wondering, could that be part of it? Like, they don't actually have a way to bring in seasoned and experienced people unless they target them. Like, if they targeted me, that'd be a different story, because they selected me and want me in. But there's no way to kind of just walk into the door and start helping unless you're a political science junior and you're making your way up. Do you think that was my barrier, or we're just looking too deep into that?
No, you're probably connecting the dots here, right? Like, basically what he said to you is, I don't know how I can manipulate you for my advantage at your level. So I think we're going to pass.
Okay.
That's how I would translate his message there.
Okay, I will accept that, because I think you're dead right. Yeah, so they didn't see the ability to massage me, and I think that would have been pretty clear during our conversation. So yeah, okay, maybe you're right. So I guess, winking at him and putting a smile on wouldn't have helped then.
No.
No. Okay. Well, that was the one that really, really surprised me, because that never really crossed my mind. I would expect like a Harvey Weinstein, where every once in a while there's somebody that's doing bad things, but for it to be part of the party and kind of known and kind of looked past, that was upsetting to me. But then we did hear a little bit later, and it might have been part of that 40% you missed, that he was actually told. So he sat down and they said, don't talk about members, don't bring it up. And he says, well, what if there's like an illegal activity that I witness? What should I be doing there? And he was told to shut up. Wow. Okay. That one is another one of these. So there's a no witness philosophy inside the party. There's a don't whistleblow thing going on there, is there not?
It's party before country at this point, right? And we can't accuse everybody of being guilty, but we can
No.
always stick to the Pareto principle as a fairly good gauge. So we can say 80%.
Yeah, and then the rest are just not talking, and they're just accepting it and turning their head away, and that's almost as bad, if not worse. The other people could be sick, but these ones are also not helping the situation too.
And the ones that run their mouths or try to blow the whistle or fight the system or try to bring awareness to what's going on, they're the ones that are shut down, deplatformed, kicked out. Then they try to go after your family and ruin your career and ruin your wealth and degrade your name. So
Absolutely.
that's the type of people that we're dealing with, right? That's the type of people you're dealing with in the political spectrum. And then everybody, when I say like all these problems that we're talking about, the one comment that I get is, well, if you want to change something, why don't you go run? I'm like, did you not listen to everything I just said? Like,
Right.
you
It's
can't
rigged and
change
broken.
you can't change the system from within. It's absolutely impossible. There are so many walls and barriers and just things set up for anybody who really wants to do that is either going to be corrupted by the system or they're going to be character assassinated. Those are the two options.
Well, the year right now is 2023, but it's starting to sound like 1775. That's what it's starting to sound like. Because what are our other choices? Our other choices, if we can't fix it from the inside, we can't protest it from the outside. What are the other choices?
Yeah, well, I hope people are starting to figure out that the only way forward is, the options are getting really slim here, right? Like, there really isn't too many options other than and JFK said, when you make peaceful peaceful protest impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable, right? So, you
Right.
know, I don't want to say anything that might get you into trouble on this platform, but I
No, we're
said,
having a conversation about the different options. We're certainly not initiating any calls.
okay, yeah, because I said back in 2019, 2020, when all this happens, and I said, you know what, over the next 3 or 4 years, you guys are going to protest, you guys are going to, sign petitions, and everything is going to be a giant waste of time. But when you're finally ready to, actually do what's necessary to get things done, let me know. And I'm still waiting for that point in time. And I think we all know what we're talking about, right? I'm still waiting. And when people figure it out, just let me know. I'm here. I'm ready.
Yeah. And I also think that there's a non-violent way to do it. It may be turned to violence from one side, but there's a non-violent way to do it. And I'm just going to put this out there: we don't have a justice system; we have a legal system. And in law school, about 20% of all our education that we went through was to how to uphold the trust in the legal system or the justice system. Yeah, the legal system, because it's 100% built on trust. There is no other way to keep that thing propelled up. If everybody stopped showing up to court, there'd be nobody to go through court. And if everybody unanimously decided, all right, I'm done with that one, it would collapse. And with the collapse of a legal system, the collapse of the country is next. And I'm not sure if that has to be a violent revolt. That might be the government that gets violent to go grab people and bring them.
They're the ones that are going to initiate the violence, right? When
Right.
you have because that's when your only tool in the toolbox is a hammer, right? Every problem has to look like a nail. So
Mhm.
that's what the government is. It's the only way they know how to respond is with the use of force. So
Right.
you saw it with the protests in Ottawa, right? What was their response? They didn't even go for the hammer. They went for the machete,
Mhm.
and they just started slashing. So that we saw their playbook, and a lot of people are like, oh, so the information that they were gathering on us, so they know who the non-compliant, the compliant are, but now they really exposed their playbook to us as well. We know how they're going to react. They're going to plant agent provocateurs to try to
Mhm.
change public manipulation, public opinion through manipulation. Then they're going to use the media to really build that up to a point where the people start saying, okay, government do something, and that's their green light to move in with the authoritarian boot. So we know how they operate, and that's what they're going to be doing the next time. So yeah, and the way I see it, like every arbitrary separatist identification, right? So like your culture wars, or your male versus female, your vax versus anti-vax, or your all these things, right? They're designed to create a controlled society. But if people really understood their power to affect change, the entire manufactured zeitgeist that they prey upon, it would ultimately collapse. So people really have to understand that the amount of power that the individual holds is far more than uh,
Mhm.
than than anybody can imagine. And it always takes one or two people to really affect change, to spark a revolution. So and that's what they're afraid about. They're afraid about that one or two people, like the Jeremy McKenzies, that
Mhm.
have the ability to really spark change and have people unite behind them.
Well, there's two of us on the screen right now, and one in Alberta, one in Quebec, and those would be the two people you wouldn't expect. They've been trying so hard to keep us apart. That'd be quite ironic if Quebec and Alberta got together and said, "All right, we're just going to kind of do our own thing provincially, take a hike federally." That'd be
Well,
kind of cool.
if you think about it, if the government is trying to create division between Alberta and Quebec, then the real reason is that we should be uniting, right? Because
Hmm.
Alberta, the federal government doesn't want Alberta to do what Quebec did, and that would be absolutely disastrous
Yeah.
in their views. So I think that's the whole reason why they're trying to create the separation between the two provinces. And like, we probably have a lot more in common than most people think. So yeah.
I agree completely. It's a manufactured division. The resentment has been created by Ottawa by taking from us, giving to Quebec, making it seem like you guys are whiny and stuff. But you're not. You guys are hard workers too. So yeah, I think that division for a very long time was manufactured, and it's been kept in place because it does keep Canada divided, east-west, and it does keep two powerful provinces kind of neutralized and on the side. Alberta, Quebec could definitely change this country if we got together, and they know that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like Quebec has, I'm not too sure about the population of Alberta. What, 4 or 5 million people?
We're getting up there. I think there's about almost a million in each city, and then everything else. But let me check it
And
out.
and Quebec has about 10 million. So there's 15 million people in those two provinces. You're talking about 40% of the population right there.
That'd be a large chunk for sure. And then Saskatchewan would join us pretty quick if there was something like that going on. I would hope. I don't know about Manitoba though. Yeah, 4.31 million in Alberta.
Yeah, it would honestly be good to have Manitoba as its own independent nation state that would be like a buffer zone between
Yeah.
Ontario. You want to keep those those crazy liberals from Ontario at bay, and when you use Manitoba to do that, and then everywhere west, all the way to BC, minus lower the Vancouver Island, and where things get psychotic again. You don't want them coming in either.
No. Yeah, I know that's pretty tough. I think BC can be its own thing. We'll leave those mountains between us and Alberta, and I kind of like the Great Wall of Manitoba. That sounds kind of neat, or the Great
Hmm.
Buffer. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
You're thinking now. What about the North? Do we get some protection from the Northwest and Northwest Territories for us?
Well, I don't really know about the North, right? Like, if you look at the population of the three territories, it's probably
Mhm.
what, like a quarter million, 300,000. Like,
It's close to that, yes.
the city that I grew up with, it grew up in just east of Toronto, had the same population of the entire Northwest Territories and Yukon, and so I don't really know what they want to do.
Well, what would be nice is if they became provincial and had their own rights, like maybe one northern province or something, because then we can start working with them about pipelines to the north and other trade routes and stuff. Because as
Maybe
territories, federal government has a lot of say over what's going on there.
maybe they should join forces with Alaska and become their own country, right? And then be like
Mm.
a oil and gas superpower, because there's a ton of resources in the Arctic.
And you're right about the population. So 44,000 Northwest, 37,000 Yukon, 37,000 Nunavut. So that's just over 100,000. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. Like the city that I grew up in had a population of like a quarter million people, right?
And yeah, so I don't know if they'd be ready for province then at that size. It
No.
would be nice for them to have the power and the freedom to do that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, cool. Now, do you think we will by force, or how do you think we can get to Churchill if we really want to push for a port in Churchill? Do you think this is something that Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan could get accomplished?
Oh, the only way that to do that would be like, if you ask me, is through the free markets, right? If there's going to be a demand for it, it'll be filled. And Churchill does make the most sense because it has access to the ocean, right?
Hmm.
I don't want the government to nationalize another oil and gas project,
Right.
because who really wants to get involved in that? So the only way that that'll happen is through privatization. So a company comes in and does that, and the only way that's going to happen is if we make Canada more of a business friendly environment. Right now, it's really hostile, especially in that sector, to do business, right? Like, who would want to put on the table like 10, 15 years of labor, because it
Hmm.
would probably take at least 2 decades before it returns to profit. Who would want to put up that amount of time and capital just for a government to come in and say you're shut down? Like, sorry, you can't do that anymore. Like, that's why it's not being built. It's not being built because there isn't a demand. It's not being the reason they're not doing it is because they don't want to deal with the Canadian government.
So what I hear you saying is they got to work on their ESG scores and get them really, really strong so they can get some international investment for large projects. Is that about right?
It could be, and there could be an even longer play. Like, if you take a look at the amount of resources that Canada has, right? Like, we're a resource superpower, and we're pretty
Hmm.
much untouched. So like, that's the reason why China is after us, right? And that's why I say everybody should, start learning Mandarin or Cantonese, because if China really wants to take us over, they don't even have to do it by force, right? The government capitulated to a bunch of bouncy castles, so
Mm.
it wouldn't really take China much. And and they would have the ability. They have the army, they have the access to capital, and then you would really see a showdown between China and America through Canada, and then that's kind of the scary situation. But I'm just talking off the top of my head here.
Sure, sure. Well, one of the things he also brought up was oil to be our reserve currency or be used in that fashion. And do you think, first, do you think that's a good idea? And second, do you think uh, Ottawa would want Alberta to have that kind of power?
Well, of course not. Ottawa would never want to have Alberta to have that. And oil, yeah, oil it is a currency. Like, it does have value, right? So oil, gold, silver, forestry, uranium,
Hmm. Water.
all of these, yeah, water, all of these things, you can create a basket of commodities, um, and then you can have that actually backs your currency that way. The most stable is going to be gold, right? Like gold
Mm-hmm.
is stable. Oil is it would be a benefit too, but just because we're flush in oil. So I think those would be the top two to be focused on, a gold, oil backed currency.
So how would that work? I don't know enough about economics and how that stuff works. So go ahead and kind of educate me on how that works.
Well, so you can't really. Well, you'd have like oil reserves, so you would store oil in your in barrels, right? So you
Okay.
would actually have, like, instead of gold in your vault, you'd have barrels of oil in your vault. Or if you wanted to take the paper route, you would create an ETF, or an electronically traded fund, that values your oil reserves and then converts it into a
Right.
paper fund. But that's playing the paper game again, right? So you would actually want to have physical oil. So you would basically have to store oil.
And
So
what's the purpose of that? If we ever default, someone can come empty those stored oil. That's kind of the idea there.
because it holds value, right? And that's why gold is ultimately better, because oil, you need like a massive drum of oil, right? And you get like $50 or $60. With gold, you can have a 1 ounce gold coin that, that would hold $2,000 worth of value. And so that's why gold is the ultimate money, because it holds a lot of wealth in a very
Mm.
small space. And that's why central bankers hold it, is because, um, of its ability to hold wealth and to store value over a long period of time.
Now, does the U.S. still have a reserve? Because there's a lot of rumor that Fort Knox is empty. Do you know anything
Oh
about that?
yeah, oh yeah. Like they said they have 7,500 ounces, right? But the gold is all gone. It's all been rehypothecated away. There's no gold left in the vaults. It's all gone to, to the east, to the BRICS nations, your Russia, your China, your India, your Brazil, and South Africa. That's who's holding all the gold right now. So the U.S. doesn't have any gold. And it was a funny thing. It was J.P. Morgan. They went um, to go get some nickel from their vaults. This was a few months ago, and you can pull this up online too, because it's actually pretty funny. JP Morgan goes to find nickel in their vaults, and they open up the vaults, and it's filled
Oh, it's rock.
with rocks. So they're
Yeah.
literally bag holders on their own assets. Now, if they went after the nickel, you think that the gold is there? There's not a chance. There's no gold. It's gone.
Yeah, that was an incredible story. I do remember that. Now, remember thinking to myself, well, maybe that's pre-mined nickel. Maybe there's nickel in that rock. It just hasn't been extracted yet. Maybe that was their argument. There's in there. Or they just threw a handful of nickels, a bunch of rocks, and called it a day. And then, I just looked it up quickly here. 60 years ago, when this was even 2 years ago. So 62 years ago was the last time they audited the gold reserves in the U.S. So, I think a lot of people are onto something if they're still asking for it and they're not getting an audit. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I was really following the gold market back at that time, and there were, like, there's only two or three major refineries that refine gold for, central banks, right?
Okay.
One of them is, I believe, is in Switzerland, and what they were saying is that the gold coins and the bars that they were melting down to recast into new larger bars, like I think they're 400-ounce bars
Oh, wow.
is a central bank brick. They were saying that some of the gold that they were melting down was from like the 50s and the 60s. So like we were running out. They were running out of gold in reserves. The West was, because that's what was happening, was they were swapping the hard asset, the physical asset gold, for the paper asset, which is ticker GLD on the stock exchange. It's it says that you're a holder of gold, but there is no gold there.
Nothing tied to it. Okay.
There's nothing tied to it. It's a paper derivative. So they swapped physical assets for paper derivatives, sent it off to Switzerland to be melted down, and then sold into the market, where it was bought up by the BRICS nations. So that's what I think happened, and there's probably a lot of validity to that argument.
So by talking about the dating of the gold being melted down, I guess it's implying that it's the bottom of the pile, like they're at the end of their pile.
Yeah, exactly.
Ouch. 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 Okay, now can talk to me. What do you know about Bitcoin and that kind of market and digital currency, and does that play a role? And where are you on that kind of stuff? Because there's two sides to that one: the people who hate it and people that love it.
So first of all, for me, the biggest thing that I like is gold. Gold is my number one, and because I'm looking to, when I buy gold, right, I'm looking to store wealth. I'm not looking to speculate. I'm not looking to make money off of it. All I'm doing is to hold the value that today, so when I access it in the future, it can buy the same amount of goods and services, right? So I
Mm.
hold gold as a store of value. Now, if you want to go into a more speculative asset where you want to say, okay, I want to actually make a return, and then increase risk, then you can go into cryptocurrency. So it's not really a competition between
Okay.
gold and cryptos. They serve two completely different services, two completely different uses. And it comes down to the individual, right? Some people say, oh, you buy all gold, and you can do that, and that's just a highly conservative point of view. That's okay. I don't want to make any money on my wealth that I have. I just
But
want
you
to
want to
make
store
sure.
it.
I just want to make sure that I'm not going to lose anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Bitcoin people say, okay, invest everything into Bitcoin. And you're like, okay, what I see this as a speculative asset. My $10,000 could be worth $100,000 in a few years from now, or it can be worth nothing, right?
Right.
Obviously, Bitcoin isn't going to zero, but it's just the argument. So it all comes down to your individual's risk tolerance. And for me, because I play options on the markets, I already have enough risk tolerance, right? Like, when I was talking about GLD gold, like I have contracts on gold through the options market where it takes that risk and then it multiplies it by 100. So right now, like I have 100% increase in risk on gold. I don't need to have any more risk and buy Bitcoin. I don't need to do that. But what I want to do is I want to store the money that I've made through speculating in the market by holding gold. So, it's not two sides. It all comes down to the individual and what they're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that holding a little bit of both, you can't really go wrong, because we don't know what Bitcoin is going to be in 5, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. We have no idea. But we know gold is going to be there, right?
Right. And that's because gold actually has a purpose, not just to store value, but it could be used in manufacturing for a lot of things too. So there's a tangible need for it, which keeps its value high.
Well, that's what gives it its value, right?
Mm.
Is its properties. So it's incredibly scarce. Gold is scarce. It's divisible. You can, break it up into, small pieces. It's durable. Gold from 5,000 years ago is still gold today.
Mm-hmm.
It's fungible, so you can trade. An ounce of gold in Canada just as easily as an ounce of gold in China or wherever in the world. It has the same value all across the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a unit of account, and it's a medium of an exchange. So it has all the properties that you wanted to have for money, and then Bitcoin, it has that, plus it has the ability to speculate into the future. So you're trading off a store of value over a long period of time, because we don't have the long history on Bitcoin. But what you're
Mm-hmm.
getting is increase in risk to increase your wealth through speculation. So that's the way that I see it. But what really gives the cryptos its value, like, I could be completely wrong about it, but it's actually the blockchain technology, right? So these cryptos are kind of like, cars on the highway, and the highway is the blockchain, and that's what's really interesting to me. And I think the blockchain has an opportunity to really revolutionize the way we do business across the world.
Well, the blockchain is just open ledger, so you can see it and it can't be changed. It's very you can't change it, so it becomes very static. So it's like
It,
in stone. It's almost like we put that into stone, and that's really
yeah,
all it
like
is.
we should put the liberal government under blockchain technology, and then the whole world would see what they're up to.
Well, here's what would happen though. We would be told it's on blockchain, but it's a manipulated blockchain that we don't know how to detect, so they
Of,
can change and do things.
of
That's what
course.
would happen. Yeah. Especially when we put our faith into something that we don't know the code of or can jump in and look. It's very easy. It's very easy. Now, actually, I want to kind of dive into a little bit on the block or the Bitcoin stability, because you made the comment that obviously it's not going to go to zero. where's that confidence coming from? Because what's backing Bitcoin other than trust?
Well, I'm not, and I should expand on that. I said it's not going to go to
Yeah,
zero tomorrow or next week or
right.
next month. In 100 years from now, who knows? Like who really knows? It could go to zero, but the
Well, it could be
likelihood,
regulated out globally, right?
yeah, the likelihood of that happening is very, very low. Most likely, it's going to increase in value over time. But again, what you have to really do is we're measuring all these assets in respect to the dollar, right? How
Hmm.
many dollars does it take to buy one Bitcoin? How many dollars does it take to buy 1 ounce of gold? How many dollars does it take to buy, a piece of property or one house? So if we really take the medium of exchange of the dollar out of the picture, then you get a completely different picture altogether. How many ounces of gold does it take to buy one Bitcoin? How many ounces of gold does it take to buy one real estate, one piece of property?
Hmm.
So if we start taking a look on how things are priced and compare assets to other assets without using the dollar, and then you can, extrapolate outwards. You can really see what assets are beneficial to hold over time. What holds their value, what doesn't hold their value, and then you can really move into, the assets that would be the best for you.
And I just want to bring up a comment here from Peter for you. Kevin is very generous with his knowledge. Glad he's on our side. Yeah, me too. Me too, Peter. Absolutely. We got some of the good ones on our side for sure. So I'm going to kind of switch back a little bit to Randy. So one of the things that people popped up in the chat and was really concerned about was kind of hearing that there were subjects he cannot talk about. And they're like, well, hey, we're happened to freedom of speech and stuff like that. Let's remind people that we're not in America and we have different types of laws up here because they're all saying things that are really on the books down south. And they may not understand what actually happens up here. So he definitely was gagged through bail conditions. So that was one of those conditions that they offered him in order to let him out of that concrete cell. And as he explained, under duress, because it's the only way you accept stuff like that, under duress, he accepted it. We spent a lot of time in law school talking about how duress vitiates or cancels all contracts because you can't contract under duress. It's against the rules. You have to be on sound mind and you have to be consensual. It can't be
Mm-hmm.
under duress. But yet here in our own legal system, they're using duress to get people into bail conditions and they know it. So what was your take on that?
Well, it goes down to rules for thee, but not for me, right? When they're saying that you can't, enter into a contract under duress, and if you do, it's null and void. What they mean is everybody else but us can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this, once again, it's the state holding a monopoly on violence and the use of force, where they hold everybody else accountable for the things that they themselves are actually quite obviously guilty of doing.
Right. And another thing that I've been highlighting to people recently is we don't have a justice system in Canada. We have a legal system. And there is
Mhm.
a big difference between the two.
Mhm.
A legal system is where you follow the rule of law. It's just as simple as that. You're just following the laws that are written as they're written, and that's what you're doing. A justice system is when you can bring morality decisions, and the court or the judge can supersede laws for the interest of justice, because there's an understanding in the justice system that the laws can't be perfect and we can't get it all right. So we need this mechanism to adjudicate it. We don't do that in Canada because we have things like judicial review, which allows the judge to just accept things as fact without proof. And we don't have mechanisms for the judge really to have a lot of discretion. The laws are written in such a way that they really have to follow precedents. And it's not that they're told you can't make up your own stuff. It's the appeal process that's really screwing them up. Because the judges, they fear appeals. They don't want things to be overturned. So they are very, very adamant on just sticking to the law, which turns it into a legal system, not a justice system. And this is how we can hear things like, I can't believe they did that to her because she's accused of just yelling at somebody, but yet they're pulling her across the country on a countrywide warrant. That's how that kind of thing happens. Are you aware of that? And is my assessment of that kind of accurate?
Well, I'm sure. Well, you were in pre-law, right? Like you have law, the understanding of Canadian law. Like I didn't
Hmm.
really study law. The way I see it as a justice system, as in JUST/US. It's
Just
just us.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the just us is, it's a big club and we're not in it. So
Hmm.
the system is basically protected to set up to protect themselves at the expense of everybody else, and that's the way I see it.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing unfold too. Like with the POEC inquiry, which is not a judge, it was a commissioner, but still, the message is the same here. They reviewed themselves, and no charges came out of it, and it didn't end up in the court. So yeah, when you control the inquiry process and you appoint the judges, it's very difficult to get true justice out of it for citizens. That's for sure.
And like one thing I want to point out, and like, all the people that were cheering on, the government as they were doing this to the convoy, and they were so happy with what the POEC, like these are the people that were, the calling freedom dumb, right? Like these
Hmm.
types of people. And they were cheering this on. And I always ask them, what if somebody like Donald Trump from the United States was able to pick his own judge, his own jury, was able to, choose what law he wants to follow and what law he doesn't want to follow, and come to the conclusion that he wasn't guilty. The Dems in the United States went crazy after Donald Trump, and
Hmm.
they basically, well, they tried to ruin him. But if we applied what Donald Trump did, and let's just say, take what Trudeau did and put it together, how would the liberals react? How would the left react if Trump had the ability to do the exact same things that Trudeau did? What do you think would happen?
Oh, they would be upset. They would be revolting. They would be in the streets. They would push the BLM protesters aside in order to have this protest,
Oh,
and
they
they
would
would
be
burn. They would
screaming.
burn things down. They'd break windows. They would do a lot.
They would be screaming dictator, literally Hitler. Oh my God, the world is coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the only reason why they weren't doing that is because they're on the side that they agree. So they're okay
Right.
with authoritarianism. They're actually full in support, but they just don't like authoritarianism that they don't agree with, right? So it's, again, it's the liberal hypocrisy at its finest.
Well, yeah, we saw that example in 2020. So Trump is saying, "Hey, I'm working on the vaccine. I'm going to bring it out in 2020," and then a whole bunch of people are saying, "I'm not taking that. It's going to be poison. It's going to be crazy. I'm not touching the Trump vaccine." And then boom, change the president, and boom, all of a sudden it's the best thing on earth, and of course it's safe and effective, and everybody should be doing it. And if you disagree, you're crazy. Although they disagreed a week before. That's the liberal mindset because they can do stuff like that, right?
Yeah, like if you want to find out where the left lives, they're on the corner of hypocrisy and double standard, because that's all they are.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm starting to wonder, why is it so difficult for us to recruit more common sense, intelligent people when there's such a hypocrisy happening? Is just, are they really good at brainwashing their group, their base, that they're really not paying attention? Their nose is only in where they want the nose to be?
Well, this is where, that's a really difficult question to ask, because, you know, so the way I look at it, it's the education system is the primary problem, right? And if you take a look at the education system as a factory, uh, it's designed to push out, product, and the product in this case is an NPC mind, a non player character mind,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they take, people that have, human beings, they have so much potential, and they're highly intelligent, and they put them into this state-run indoctrination system where it's designed to pump out NPCs, and then this is the problem. There's not too many people that can get away from this public education system, or go through the public education system, and really understand that it is not doing what it's meant to do, and it's meant to educate, and it's doing the exact opposite through indoctrination. So that's why we have the problem where we're at, why our numbers are so low, is because they've been being brainwashed or manipulated from a very young age. And Tom McDonald, he even says it in in one of his songs. He's like, "Welcome to the world." Like, we're gonna brainwash you from a very early age with the classroom, and if the
Hmm.
classroom doesn't do the trick, we'll make you watch the news, right? So every thing that they target and hit you with is designed to manipulate you into furthering their agenda. And there's very few people that have the ability to break away from that. And the only people that do are the people that are on our side. So number
Mm-hmm.
one, they've experienced it, or like their families or their grandparents, they've experienced this through like that gentleman that's going to be coming onto your show, right? He escaped Venezuela, so
That's what.
he
Yep.
actually saw what this was. Or you have people that are like critical thinkers and they can put two and two together relatively easy, and then you have that's us, and then everybody else, they're just gonna, they either don't care, or they're ignorantly, like they're blissfully ignorant and they don't want to know, they're just happy keeping their head down. And then you have all the conformists that actually fully support what's happening. So it is very interesting when you break society up like that. And the people that are critical thinkers and can figure it out, the system hates us, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they try to punish us as much as possible. And so I do want to give a kudos to everybody who's up there here standing out, because it is exhausting. It takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, and you also question yourself sometime, like, am I on the right side? Like, would life be easier if I just started eating that processed stuff and just go along with it? It becomes, and also works on your mental state sometimes, because there's a lot of work here, a lot of hours to do this kind of thing, and you know that.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Like I made a comment on Twitter yesterday, and somebody came out and he basically said that I'm a grifter, and I'm making all this money, and I'm like, yeah. What, going against the narrative, ruining my relationship with my family and my friends while making absolutely no money. Doing it is definitely an excellent business venture. I highly recommend anybody to get into this business where you make no money and destroy all your relationships. Extremely profitable. So it's just like somebody's going to hate you. Everybody will hate you no matter what you do, right?
Mhm.
So all you have to do is you have to ask yourself what matters to you. And we were talking about this on an earlier podcast. You have your big rocks and your little rocks, and everybody should. And your big rocks are things that
And your black rocks.
your black rocks. Yeah, your big rocks are things that what really matter to you, right? So your family, your health, stuff like this,
Mm-hmm.
and really spend 80% of your time on the things that really matter, and then 20% of your time are just on a day-to-day thing. So once you can figure out what matters to you, then you can create a message and really stand for what you believe in. And I don't think a lot of people really have identified what matters to them, or they believe what they believe is just wrong. Like like, sorry to say, like you believe in a wrong ideology, or you believe in a false paradigm, and it's tough.
It's tough, and there's some pretty bad people out there. I had somebody send me I guess it was secretly recorded Twitter space of some lefties targeting some people, and the way they were talking, it was just genuinely evil. They were talking about how, oh, we dug up some dirt. I know the pain points, and I'm purposely trying to stay away from details because I'm not trying to out anybody here. But they're talking about, oh, we know the pain points, and what we're going to do is we're going to program our bots to hit those pain points until they commit suicide. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like I actually hear you saying those words. There's a group of half a dozen people in here, and on their side with their blue hairs and stuff, you can see them nodding away. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's go ahead and have someone off themselves, and let's go ahead and plan that and make that happen. I was appalled. Mark Dice, I think that's his name. There's a
Mark Dice is awesome. He's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched one of his episodes where he mentioned that there was a study where they can actually tell because the disgust portion of your brain doesn't exist and is not as active in liberal minds, whereas on our side, it's highly active. And that's why we repulse, and that's why we respond so quickly to things like butchering children, of course, but they don't. Do you think there's any truth behind that, or is that just a joke he was telling, do you think?
I don't know, but like it makes sense. And like I go back to what I was saying before. These people are morally and intellectually bankrupt.
Mm,
They don't everything they do is at the detriment of society, and that's why I find these people so evil. And then even worse is the people that go along and enable them, right? So you have that one person that was saying, oh yeah, we should do this, and then you have 5 or 6 other people agreeing with them, and it's the 5 or 6 people that are agreeing with them is giving that one person all the power through enabling them. And if the 5 or 6 people said, no, wait, you're crazy, we shouldn't do that, that's absolute lunacy, that one person's idea would fall by the wayside, right? But it was the group that enabled them to give them that power. And that's where we have it with we can extrapolate that to our society today. We have the 1 or 2 people saying we should crush the protesters and we should arrest them and we should throw the unvaccinated in jail, and then you have like 7 or 8 people on top of it saying, yeah, you know what, let's do that, that's a great idea. And that's where you get your gas chambers and your gulags, right?
Right. Yeah, I know history. People didn't pay attention because even in Canada, we rounded up the Japanese during World War II. Was it? I think it was World War II. Yeah, we did exactly that.
Internment camps.
Yeah,
Canada and the United States did that as well.
Yeah, but I gotta remind. Go ahead. Froze all
their assets, put them into internment camps.
Yeah, California was hit hard for that, right? That's where a lot of them were.
Even Japanese people that were born in Canada, like even Canadian Japanese, they went after their own people. And again, we did this with the Native Americans too, right? Like,
correct.
Like if we didn't throw them in jail, we just slaughtered them. It is absolutely horrible. Like Canada's history is absolutely horrible. Like we want to make ourselves out to be some like friendly place, and the whole idea of Thanksgiving, like, oh, we just showed up on their shores and they gave us half of our food. No, we basically colonized an entire country. We took it over by force. We raped and pillaged an entire society, and we robbed them, and then we enslaved them. So like that's how I see it, and I'm sure people are going to get pushback, but like I think that's more of an accurate depiction of what happened in our history, through like the Hudson's Bay era, than what they're trying to depict now is like everybody was dancing around rainbows with the unicorns and everybody was sharing food with each other and we got Thanksgiving. No, that's it's so wrong. It's just so wrong.
Well, history can be rewritten nowadays, so it could be whatever they want at this point now, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure, right? And then that's one of the big things that Marxists like to do is they like to erase history and then rebrand it and recreate it in their own idea.
Well, I was a Pee Wee Herman fan back in the days, and he has that song "Connect the Dots," la 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 la, connect the dots, la 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 la. And one of the dots I'm trying to connect right now in my mind is, well, who said we were the passive apologetic one other than the indoctrination in the culture itself? So maybe quite a long time ago, as young kids, we were all told Canadians are nice, they say thank you, yada yada, we're passive. But could that be indoctrination to make us passive so we actually believe that?
Yeah, oh, for sure. And when I hear people say Canadians are nice and they're polite, what I get from that when I translate that is I get naive and obedient.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking here. Like, we were told all our entire lives, no, you're Canadian. You're not like the aggressive Americans who stand up for the rights. You're the Canadians that say please and thank you. And you even say sorry when it's not for you to say sorry. Like, even when you're not sorry, you'll say sorry. So I wonder if that has been banged into us so hard. And that's why we have 80% vax rates and we have 60% that want to go after the convoy and stuff like that.
Yeah, social engineering, and the way that they set up the vax program was like, from a marketing standpoint, that's how you would do it, right? Like you would reward the obedient for being compliant, and that's exactly what they did. And then at the trail end of the program, when no matter how much you can reward somebody or no matter how much you threaten somebody, they're just not going to do it, and then comes down the boot.
Right. And then there's another one that kind of got indoctrinated out of us, and that is that violence is the answer. We've been told that's never the answer. But that itself is also not true, as we saw that the government has a monopoly on the use of violence as an answer to many problems. So we were told as citizens, violence is never the answer. And you can understand that on the playground level, maybe. But on a much larger level, sometimes violence is an answer, as we've seen. Do you think that also was indoctrinated out of us to immediately say, well, as soon as it gets violent, we can't tolerate that anymore, no matter what the purpose is behind it? And sometimes violence is necessary, and sometimes violence against violence is necessary. So do you think that was also indoctrinated out of us to be willing to take that step to a physical altercation if necessary, and we just simply don't do it? And this is also why bystanders will just stand there and watch and not do anything.
Well, when they say violence is we shouldn't be tolerating violence, what they're actually saying is that you can't be violent against us. We're
Correct.
we're not going to tolerate that. One of the famous founding fathers from the United States, he said, the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants, right? So they throughout history, governments never, give people rights. They never, give them the freedoms. They always take away. And the only real thing that has gotten people more rights and liberties is by, taking it back by the use of force on government. And Yuri Bezmenov said the same thing, right? He said, signing petitions and doing all these protests are a waste of time. The only way to get the government to listen to you is by force.
Right. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to use force. So force doesn't have to be violence. Force could be other things like noncompliance. We're not doing it at all, and we're going to force that opinion on you. And yeah, you want to throw a ticket at us, you want to call a charge, we're just not going to show up. And that would be another type of force. Would you think?
Yeah. Non-compliance is really good. And one of the things that I really tried to get trending on Twitter that really, it didn't really go was, I think that the most effective way to use non-violent force against the government is through a nationwide tax strike.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
I know it's not easy for a lot of people, but this is not going to be an easy step. If you're not willing to do at least that, then what are you willing to do? And people are saying, oh, it's through through my employer and this and that. That's the number one reason I get. But there's a whole bunch of self-employed people that can just stop filing taxes and stop paying their income taxes. I know what the repercussions are going to be, because I've gone down that road. I've had my bank accounts frozen by the government for not paying taxes, and my wages garnished. But at least I'm willing to walk the walk, right? Like I know that this is a very effective tool that we can use, and I'm not too educated on the employee side of things. I'm not sure if an employee can actually go to an employer and say, I don't want you to, take money off of my paycheck for me. I want to be able to do that myself at the end of the year. Like, if someone can clarify that, that would be great, because I don't know. Because I think that if we abolish automatic payroll deductions, then, everybody would tax revolt.
Well, I'll answer that question. It's the employer that has to do it. It's through the GST registration for payroll tax. It's something that has to be applied for, and then then you have to do it. As an employer, I've had to do that. So you register for a payroll tax program, and you have to collect it. It's never allowed to be them. It's only self-employed and people with tips and stuff like that doesn't go through the bank account of the business, that they don't touch. But absolutely, the businesses have first touch on your money, and they make sure they get it to the government. That's required.
Yeah, whenever I was running my business, I never hired employees, because I saw them as very risky, as a liable, right? So I always hired contractors. So we never really had to do that, and they always took care of their own thing. But that's still, at the end of the year, the employee can choose to file or not. Why not just not file?
Well, that's not that won't be a choice soon. You do know that under a certain income, it's going to be automatic tax filings coming up. The program's in place now.
Let them throw all their fines. Who cares? They can take a hike. Let them do what they want to do. Just stop filing. Like I stopped filing in 2016. Just stop.
Okay, cool.
I'm not paying you anymore. Like, go away.
Yeah, and eventually they'll have not enough money to come get you. So maybe that's kind of the point. If a lot of people decided to do that, the government wouldn't be, because even those employees that work for the government won't do it for free. They will leave if they're not getting paid.
And if you look at what the government does, what's their tool? They go after people's pocketbook, right? They froze people's bank accounts. So why don't we use what they use against us on them? Go after their pocketbook, go after their and I still can't wrap my head around the fact that why are we paying taxes when they can just create currency out of thin air? It makes no sense, and it's just another way. So basically, I see income tax as just a report card where you're telling the government, oh, this is how much money I made here, and is that okay? And the government's like, yeah, that's okay, just give us half, right? Like the whole idea of income tax is just ludicrous to me. And remember, how it was sold to us as a temporary tax to pay for
Right,
the
for the
war.
war. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the war's been over for a long time. So there's nothing more permanent in life than a temporary government program. So yeah, we need to stop paying income tax, and I think that would get the government's attention real quick.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about not paying taxes, another one is to pull your kids out of schools. So if everybody didn't register for September, that would be a big message to the school boards and stuff like that. But I keep getting the pushback up, well, I can't afford that and I need to work. And unfortunately, what these people are not understanding is you're in the trap of believing you need two incomes and you don't have to raise your own children. You're in that trap. And look, you were fine with it when it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve that turned into 2 months, that turned into 2 years. You were fine with it then. So I think that would be another low-hanging fruit if everybody stopped complying. That would actually have an impact quickly, maybe, on the schools. What about thoughts on that one? Because that has a less impact on their finances, like the tax man coming after you, but it is also a very direct protest towards the indoctrination of in the schools.
Yeah, 100%. We have to target them at the schools because that was their most powerful tool, right? So a very, very powerful message you can send to the state is mass exodus out of the public education system. And I think it's inevitable. I just don't think we're there yet. It might happen in the next generation, because the people that are saying this, oh, I can't do this, or I can't afford that, and they continue along, they're just setting the next generation up for failure. That's all they're doing. So when these kids that have been set up for failure grow up and realize they've been sold a bill of goods, and they've been deceived, and they got the short end of the stick, it's them that are going to be pissed, right? It's the younger generation that's actually going through this, and when they wake up and made aware of just how they were deceived, because it's going to be blatantly obvious at that point in time, the burden will be on their shoulders.
And then education, super important. Now, I also started thinking about this when Randy was talking, which was big tech and internet as a source of information. So when it first started off in like the 90s, so 95 is the first time I jumped online. It was open. You could get to anything. There was really no restrictions. You just had to be able to find it. That was really the only thing. And then as time went on, we were all feeling like this is the next place to get your knowledge and your information and your news. This is great because nobody's in control of it. We can all start doing that. Then we built a lot of trust on stuff that we're getting on internet. Then the government started to control it and started to really narrow down. And now it's to the point where big tech with the government, they're controlling the messages to you. And there's an entire generation of people that believe what they see on the internet is going to be closest to the truth than anything else. But now it's fully in control of the government through big tech. So now they're doing this indoctrination on a platform that was supposed to free us. It's not freeing us. It's a new trap. You think that would be true? Do you think I have that right?
Yeah, it's techno-fascism, right? So big tech and big government, teaming up together to regulate the platform. And what we see on the internet, I'd suspect we only have access to 1 or 2% of the internet. The other 98% we don't even have access to. Your dark webs that we don't even know what's going on. So there's a whole entire internet that is still the wild west, but it's just been shut off to basically everyday people.
Right. Like if Google didn't index it, it doesn't really exist. That's kind of how that works right now. And if Google's controlling what to index, which they do, then we control what you have access to. Because if you don't know the IP address or domain name, good luck finding it if it's not indexed.
Yeah, you can buy anything you want on the internet. You can buy anything from a nuclear bomb to a kidney, right? But how do you get to that? And that's through the dark web. And most people, they don't have the ability or the interest to even access that, right? Like,
now, here's the thing about I want to highlight though, Tor, the Tor network itself. that runs this dark web thing, that's a U.S. government military project. Why do people ignore that step, that part? It was initiated and then handed over graciously to the community, or is this just a honey trap?
If the government has its fingers on it, it's a trap.
100%. And it's what I try to tell people. Like, look, the government just gave you a place that said, you go do all your illegal stuff here. Don't worry, we're not watching. And that's exactly what people start to do.
Trust us. We got your back. Go do it.
Yeah, it was a DARPA project. It came out of a DARPA project. It's not even hidden history. But the history is confusing because it says, and then they released the project open source and made it available.
Sure. Facebook is also a DARPA project.
100% correct. People were wondering, how does Mark from his little dorm create this? And the way it was created was a big push into the media and a big push by the government to put people there because it's a great surveillance tool. So I saw that growth happen rapidly, and I understood it very quickly that they had a lot of support. They were on every news channel, every business channel. They were everywhere talking about every magazine. Like, Mark was a celebrity for like 5 years solid there, as they built this thing up. Yeah, you're right. And then I have to say the same thing with Bitcoin, though, because we don't really know that history. It kind of came out of nowhere. The creator of it, nobody really knows. And there's 1 million Bitcoins that were first mined, the first million that are sitting in the wallet, and nobody knows whose it is. And I think that's scary itself. I have gone through the code a little bit on Bitcoin, and I'm trying to warn people for quite a while now that Bitcoin's designed to collapse. There is a kill switch in it. It is designed to collapse. But I guess nobody, is concerned with that. Are you aware of that?
Well, in terms of Bitcoin, like, we're getting back to this argument again. It's hard to say. The creator, and like, I had a feeling for a long time that Bitcoin was just used to normalize cryptocurrencies, to get people accustomed and to get people comfortable with it. So when it does collapse, and I'm gonna say it's not going to go to zero, but if it's trading at $25,000 and it gets dropped down to $5,000, that's pretty much a collapse, right? And then, because it's been normalized, and then you have the ability for the bankers to come out and say, you know what, why don't we use this one instead? It's ours. It's much more safe and it's much more secure. So I've thought for a long time that Bitcoin and the crypto market, and I could be completely wrong, like everybody is, that it's basically another psyops to get people to jump in, make a lot of money, and then paper money, and then watch everybody lose a lot of money at the same time, and just for them to offer their solution. Like, we saw this in this is how the Federal Reserve came into existence in 1913.
Right. All the different banks issuing their own cash.
Yeah, in 1907, 1908, there was a huge stock market meltdown, right? So the stock market ripped to the upside, and then it collapsed. And then we started saying, oh, we need a system and the U.S. had tried to institute multiple central banks before the Federal Reserve, and then they all failed, right? So then you had a big banking collapse, and then people started pushing for a central bank again, and then the Fed was born, saying that we're going to take this boom and bust cycle and we're going to take it away, and then we're going to provide stability for the currency and for the stock market, and we're going to guarantee the protection of like future depressions. And looking back at history, nothing can be further from the truth. Basically all the Fed did was to gain control of the money supply so they can fund their war machine, and it was evident right off the bat. World War I kicked off a few years after the Fed was brought into existence in 1913. So the same tools and playbook they used to bring in the Fed, I think they're using with crypto and with Bitcoin now. So that's another reason why I'm a firm believer in gold, is because it's a physical asset that you can hold in your hand. And people say, oh yeah, you can hold Bitcoin in a cold wallet, but I can't touch it. Like, I can't hold it up, and I just can't do that. So
well, there's a guy who lost 7,500 Bitcoins in a cold wallet, and he's still trying to dig in that dump in the UK. Did you hear that story?
It's gone. He's never going to find it. It's gone.
Yeah, he's trying. He's even offered half the money to the municipality to help him. Anyway, so that's one of the downfalls. Yeah.
That's his own fault.
Yeah. So, and that was also early for him. He had no idea. But I want to kind of go back to the the Federal Reserve stuff. So originally, we used to have community banks. They were the local bank. They were decentralized. You would go put your money into that one, or maybe this co-op, and the banks were all individual, and they all worked in the community. And then we saw the Federal Reserve come in. You have a national currency, because even back at that time, states themselves and sometimes even banks would issue their own currency.
Yeah, competing currencies.
Yeah, so that created a nice, interesting market where you would have to compete for the customer and you would have to do good work in order for your currency to have value. And then they centralized that on a national state level. So Bitcoin could be the global version of that. So they're now trying to globalize to one type of currency for the same purpose, which is to control it completely.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what the biggest thing that they hate is competition, right? They hate competition. So they build up these speculative assets, and then they spread rumors that causes these assets to collapse, and then they bring out with their own solution. Oh, everybody needs to move to this, and it's basic problem reaction solutions. The same.
Well, the Waterloo principle, right?
The what?
The Waterloo principle, where Rockefeller, was it, or Rothschild? He put a rumor into the UK market, crashed it, bought it up, and then the rest is history.
And then he took over. Then they took over the Bank of England.
Right. And that was just a rumor about the war results. He put a false rumor in a day or two before the message got there, and there you go.
And then he put a false rumor in, and then he bet against it
to show everybody that he's believing his rumor, crashed the market, and then bought it all up.
Yep. Napoleonic Wars.
Yep. You know this stuff, and that's where the Rothschilds really blew up at that point. And now they're everywhere and doing a bunch of things. Kind of speaking about that, we had some breaking news come out that you shared on your Twitter. I'm going to go bring this up because you talked about big rocks and little rocks, but there's also a black rock. And this was making the rounds yesterday. I don't know if everybody saw it yet, but James O'Keefe, who used to be part of Project Veritas before Project Veritas went all woke and went all crazy, he's on his own now doing his own undercover working. And this is only 2 days old, this particular video from the 19th. So I'll go ahead and play for people, and we'll see what you think about it, Kevin.
They don't want to be in the news. They don't want people to talk about them. They don't want to be anywhere on the radar.
Why not?
I don't know, but I suspect it's probably because it's easier to do things when people aren't thinking about it.
All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians. You can take this big ton of money, and then you can start to buy people.
I work for a company called BlackRock.
Meet Serge Varley, a recruiter at BlackRock.
Let me tell you, it's not through who's the president. It's who's controlling the wallet. So it's
And who's that?
The hedge funds, the banks. These guys want campaign financing. Yep, you can buy your candidates. Obviously, we have the system in place. First, there's the Senate race. And these guys are rich. You got 10 grand, you can buy it. I can give you 500K right now. No question asked.
Yeah.
I did it too. So it's done.
Does everybody do that? Does BlackRock do that?
It doesn't matter who wins.
You're still right.
They're my pocket.
Here's Serge Varley on how good war is for BlackRock's business.
Do you have any thoughts on the Ukraine-Russia war?
Yeah, I mean, I do have thoughts.
What are they?
Ukraine is good for business. You know, right? I'll give an example. Russia blows up Ukraine's grain silos. The price of wheat's going to go mad up. Ukrainian economy is tied very largely to the wheat market, global wheat market. Prices of bread, literally everything is up and down. This is fantastic if you're trading. Volatility creates opportunity to make profit. War is real good for business. It's exciting when goes wrong, right? BlackRock manages 20 trillion. It's incomprehensible numbers.
BlackRock's Serge Varley says all of this is above a normal person's understanding.
You're like an undercover reporter. I don't know. No people don't give a shit. This is beyond them.
So a little bit of truth there. So BlackRock, 20 trillion, they control stuff. What was your big takeaway in that little clip?
Well, my big takeaway is that it's far more than 20 trillion, right? So 20 trillion is in assets, and then I talk about this a little bit through. It's called the derivatives complex. So you have an asset, and then you have a derivative on that asset, where you can basically increase exposure by 100 times or 1,000 times. So if you're talking about 20 trillion, multiply that number by 100, let's say, and that's really the amount of wealth that they're controlling. So
Mm-hmm.
of course, everything is been bought and paid for. And even when I was talking to Maxime Bernier, this is what I was talking about. Like the biggest issue is the power of the central banks. And the way I see BlackRock is, in 2020.
Something's happening to your audio, dude.
How about now?
It's weird. I don't know. Maybe somebody pushed a button. Something has gone weird to your audio. You said 20 trillion, and then you started getting robotic or choppy. And your video looks fine.
Yeah, well, we probably know
Oh.
who's entered the room, right?
There we go. Kind of cleared itself up. I guess when we talk about them, they jumped off, or they found the button that they screwed up on. But go ahead. You're saying 20 trillion, more like 100 times that.
Yeah, so it's probably more like 100 times that. And the people in question, BR, we'll call them now, BR and the Fed kind of joined in 2020. And there's articles on this where I think the article I tried to look for it the other day, it's gone, like it's disappeared. But the headline said was BR and Federal Reserve merged to stabilize markets. BR wins big. So basically what I'm seeing is, the Fed is, taking all this money out of thin air, and then through their window is pushing it into BlackRock, where they take this and then they buy up all these assets across the world, your medias and your military and pretty much everything, and then they use access to their capital to buy your senators and your politicians, to really promote the message that you want to portray. So you create currency, you buy assets, control the narrative, and then you rule the world. So this is a message that I've been saying for a very long time, and I'm glad that it's actually kind of gone a little bit mainstream, because what they're saying is 100% correct. This is exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and my takeaway was 10,000 for a senator. That's it. So give, send, go. And how many senators do we need to get C-21 removed and get our rights to stop being vitiated? I think maybe we should do a give, send, go. We got 10 million for the convoy. How many senators is that? That's 100, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's a two-way street.
No, I guess not.
I don't think it works that way. But it just shows the inherent corruption in our system, right? And like for people like us, like we knew about this. Like this is not breaking news, but to the average person that has the Ukraine flag in their profile or is pro narrative. Basically, what they are is they're pro military industrial complex. They're pro pro BlackRock. They're pro corporatism, and it's just and maybe it's unknowing, right, through media manipulation, but it's just horrible. So I'm glad that video came to light, because it went viral. Like the tweet that I shared was only got like 13 or 1400 likes, but I saw some because there's a full 10-minute video. I just cropped out 2 minutes of it and posted it on my account. But I saw some where it was up to 50, 60, 100,000 likes. So that's pretty viral in my eyes.
Yeah, and your audio kind of did it a little bit again, but that's okay. I think we got everything out. What people don't realize is what he said in there is very, very true, that the Ukraine is known as a bread basket. It's a wheat basket. And if you don't believe me, that's what their flag represents, the blue sky and the yellow wheat. So if you look at their flag, that's what their flag represents. They are a bread basket of Europe. So that was a specific war for starvation, to attack food, the food supply, to shake it, to increase its cost, to increase the speculation in it. And that was pretty clear with what he said there. And I also like how the currency of sex is still valuable, because that's why he's sitting there, right? That's obviously a date. He's trying to meet this lady. So, they may control 20 trillion or 100 times that, but there's still ways to infiltrate them. and go in there and collect this information. So I would take it that you're a proponent of stuff that like James O'Keefe is doing, getting in there, secretly recording and getting these conversations out. My question to you is, how much do you believe that versus this guy's just bragging to impress this lady versus actually he's speaking truth? Do you think there's any embellishments going on, or he's actually being coy about it? What do you think he's doing there? You got muted. Or they really got you this time?
I'll always revert back to the Pareto principle, right? Just take 80%. In this case, it's the opposite. Just take 80% of what he says as truth, and that's probably more like it.
Yeah.
And I was looking on my, because the market's just opened, and I was looking to find a chart for you on wheat futures, and I guess I can share this link to you.
Well, you can share. Yeah, you can share screens on your side. There's a present button at the bottom. You'll be able to actually pop it up.
Okay, present here.
Yeah, and then it should be share screen, and you can select which screen you want to do. And if this is in Google, it will be actually a tab for you. Yeah, there you go. You found it. I can see it popping up here, and I think I have to put it on the screen, but you get to control it. So let's put that.
So we're going to circle this right here. This is wheat futures, right? So the cost of wheat. Right here where I'm pointing at, that's where the move into Ukraine happened. So wheat went from $771.
That's a bushel or a ton?
Yeah, a bushel up to $13.50. So it went up 100%.
Doubled.
In a matter of 2 weeks, right? 2-3 weeks, because these bars are weekly. So and then what they've done, they've been on the short end every single time through the remainder, and now it's breaking to the upside again.
Oh wow! Okay, cool. Now could that benefit Canada? I'm just being an optimistic here, an opportunist here. Does that benefit Canada at all?
Probably not.
No, that doesn't make us any good. Okay, and we should. What do you think about wheat as part of reserve? So oil, wheat, or just all resources is where you're at with that?
I wouldn't use wheat because it has an expiry date, right?
Shelf life, right?
It has a shelf life, so you want to hold a commodity that doesn't expire and is durable, right? So I wouldn't hold wheat, but of course it's a valuable commodity to have, right? We have a ton of it in the prairies.
Now, some of the questions after your breaking news came out was, why don't we hear more of this kind of breaking news or these inside things? But what I want to highlight to some people is that actually we do. The BlackRock, the leaders, they tell us this all the time. There's a video recently of BlackRock talking about how they use their investment portfolio to control companies, to control behavior. So the clip is BlackRock saying we need to control behavior. And that seems to be exactly what they're doing. So we don't necessarily need James O'Keefe to leak this. We also need people to pay attention to what they're openly saying and believe them when they tell you what they're doing. Did you catch that clip?
Yeah, and if people are like, they're always going to tell you what they do before they do it. It's some kind of satanic code, right?
Yeah.
So then when it happens, they say, look, we told you. But if people are really interested in finding out who owns companies, all you got to do is you go to Yahoo Finance, and you can type in a ticker, and then it gives you a list of who owns that stock, and it's always the top 3 players, right? Your BlackRock, your Vanguard, and your State Street. They basically own every single corporation. It doesn't really matter which one. So when you're looking at getting news from the media, there's only one media corporation, and it's BlackRock Corporation, right? There's only one defense contractor, it's BlackRock. There's only one retailer, it's BlackRock. It's all BlackRock money and controlled through the central banking system, right? So it's actually, once you start peeling back the layers of the onion here, and you come to the realization that it's the central banks that are the biggest issues, and then they're enabling governments to remove people's rights while keeping them distracted through things that don't really matter, and divided. and let the banking system rob everybody blind. That's ultimately what the goal is. They have this one area where they get the government to rob everybody of their rights, and then the other area where they rob everybody of their wealth. And then what do you have left? You have a really bad situation. where you start talking about, mass deaths and mass genocides is going to be the ultimate result of that if we allow it to continue.
And I kind of subscribe to your idea there that there might be a code for them to release the information and let us know. But there's another piece of that which I think might be applicable. First, by releasing the information, you get to find out who's paying attention, and then you can isolate them and segregate them. So you release a piece of information, and then you see who puts up their hand and screams, and you say, all right, so no, we need to keep an eye on those guys. And another part of this could be they're just so arrogant and ignorant that they're just open with it because they can get away with it. So there's a lot of arrogance there where they don't really filter themselves. So maybe the combination of both of those makes it give the appearance that they have a code to it, but they could just be sloppy, and it also is a good way for them to find guys like us who will talk about it.
Yeah, it's probably a combination of both.
Yeah, because I if I was designing it, that's what I would be using it for, because in tech we do stuff like that. For example, we will have a database where we'll seed some information into it that's fake, and then if we find that information later, we know somebody got into the database. And it's kind of like bank robbers where they would put the cartridge into the thing and then explodes later, kind of like that. So we use techniques like that, and we do honeypotting a lot in IT security as well, where we're enticing people to go do stuff just to catch them. So I absolutely can see how higher level thinking than me and more powerful than me, these would be tools that they would use as well to isolate and find out the Alex Jones out there and stuff like that. Actually, I want to talk to you a little tiny bit about Alex Jones. Is he real or is he one of them? Because I'm going to just highlight that I think if he was real, he wouldn't be with us anymore. So I'm curious if he's a bit of a mouthpiece or what the story is, because they have no shame on getting rid of noisy people, but yet this guy's still around. I don't have any tinfoil on now, but I can get some. But what would you think about that?
You know what? I never really followed too much of Alex Jones. He was kind of too eccentric for me. So I don't really have a strong view either way. I know there's a lot of pro Alex Jones. There's a lot of anti Alex Jones. I'm basically in the neutral. A lot of the information that he says has been proven to come true over time.
Correct.
I just don't like the way that he presents his ideas. Like, I'm a mellow person, and I just don't like constant yelling and shouting. Right. So that's the one big turnoff when it comes to Alex Jones. But when I read his material, like, yeah, he's right. But the question arises, how come he hasn't been eliminated yet, right? And it comes down to that point where, every nuclear reactor, you have a pressure valve to release pressure. And, Alex Jones could be that pressure valve just to, divert some of what's going on. And then all the information that he comes out, you just label it as a conspiracy, right?
Right.
Don't listen to that guy. It's just a way for them to relieve pressure from the system blowing up, and they do this across the spectrum.
And that's where I'm going with this, because I'm thinking it's possible that he has a ticker on the side which is providing information, and if something got leaked or something got dropped in public accidentally, they'll send it to him quickly so he can kind of expose it. But because of his character, because of the way he does it, it turns off so many people that you now relate it to him. Conspiracy theory, loud, boisterous, it's hard to take in. So now it makes it very difficult to actually hear the truth coming out. So it might have been a bit of a psyop thing to get people to relate, BlackRock to Alex, and if it's to Alex, then it's also to Sunny Hook, and if it's Sunny Hook, then you don't believe this guy. Like, all of that together. Because I'm wondering, why is he still walking around if he is so right about all the stuff that they don't want us to hear?
Well, and another reason is they can't take him out now because then he just becomes a martyr, right? So they've kind of created another problem where if they do wipe him out, then it kind of validates everything that he's been saying.
Well, they'll just Rob Ford him then. That's what they'll do to get rid of him. They'll have a video. They'll get him into a room. They'll do something weird, and they'll just Rob Ford him a few times.
Yeah, no, I am coming up against a time limitation here, Jason.
Yeah, me too.
The market just opened. It's 9:35, and I have some trades that I'm heavily invested in right now. So
we know you're looking at wheat and gold. We know about that.
Yeah, so I'm watching my gold trade right now, and there's some big news coming out. So I do have to duck out at this time.
Thank you for being here, Kev.
If there are any last questions before I go, feel free to ask me.
Well, I think I'm good right now because what I'm going to do is I'm going to start wrapping up as well and make this less than 2 hours. But we're going to see you tonight on the Canada Relay, the Great Canadian Relay tonight.
What time is that going to be at? 6 p.m.
Somewhere in that window, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've also put the great debate at the end, so there's an hour at the end for us to whoever stuck around to have a great debate.
Yeah, we can call that the cross check, right? Where like keeping as a hockey theme, right? Where everybody gets to, check each other and it's crossing because it's from, multiple provinces. So we'll have the 1 hour cross check.
Or it could be the penalty box because we're just no holds and drop the gloves. Yeah. Or
Let's
5-minute
get it
major,
done.
we'll call it that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so for everybody listen, sorry, I have a small delay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know if we really got to the weed of things and talking about Randy Hillier, but I think I just kind of expanded on the fact that, the entire system is corrupt and everything
Right.
we see is a lie. And, we're not going to be changing the system from the inside. We have to do it from, another point of view. And we have to attack them in the way that they attacked us. So attack them at their, through the monetary system, attack them through the education system. And that's the only reason that we can. And it has to be organic, right? It can't be forced upon them. So it's going to take time, but those are the first steps that we're going to have to do if we really want to take the system back and shift it away to more of a freedom and independence point of view.
Yeah, no, I think this was a good Randy conversation because what he did was he was a canary that kind of sung, and then he was the first domino that got this to go. So yeah, he may have just started the Ontario, letting everybody know how it works in Ontario, but it caused us to go global with this conversation. So I do appreciate that, Randy, and thank you very much for your time there, Kev. Go and collect some of that gold before it's gone.
Thanks, man. Have a good day.
Take care, bro. Bye. We'll see you later. All right. Well, that was Kevin. He, once again, gracious with his time. Peter noticed that and he said, "Hey, Kevin, thanks a lot for your time and knowledge. It's very, you appreciate actually hearing from him. So that's great. Sorry that his audio kind of messed up a little bit there. Every time he said BlackRock, he kind of got odd. Of course, we're not thinking that anything's truly happening, but it's always fun when you have a guest on and they do one of those. And Paula brought it to my attention yesterday that during Corey's video, she was watching it and Paula was having some spotty internet at the time. And then Corey said something along the lines of, and the most important thing is, and then the line dropped on her. So yeah, that happens. And we also saw that with Randy as well. Randy's connection last night wasn't the best. And then we got to some juicy stuff. It started getting wonky a bit. But yeah, that's the way it goes. So are you guys liking this format? Instead of replaying the entire video, which you can go and see yourself anyways, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about some other stuff. We'll bring up the news of the day. We brought in the O'Keefe video that broke yesterday. So do you like this for your morning? Is this how you want to spend your morning? Let's go and see some comments. So my comment lady, are we up to date here? Oh, look at that. We got some stars. So Weechi is saying, Trudy sold our gold reserve. Trudeau, really? It wasn't gone before. Or Trudeau Senior, not the little one. Probably Senior is who you're referring to, because that would be right. That would be about the time frame too. See, I was young at the time. I wasn't paying attention to any of this stuff. And wow, where was the rest of the Canadians at the time to stand up for us on that one? How many judges and lawyers in Canada are Mason members? I have no idea. I'm not a Mason member, but I did go to the Masonic Lodge in Washington, D.C. So we went on a tour of the United States when we sold our house. And one of the things I did was stop by the Grand Lodge or whatever it's called, just to see what it was. And it's neat. It's neat, but it's not really my thing. I think you have to be invited in. And just like the Conservative Party, I may have the wrong attitude for this. But anyways, either case, Masons, I don't know. But I do know that judges and lawyers are governed by their law society, and their law society, by threat of removing your license, has a lot of power. And what happened to me with the Ontario Law Society, it's called the Upper Canada Law Society of Ontario. No, Law Society of Upper Canada before, now called the Law Society of Ontario. They forced CRT on us, critical race theory. You had to, or you'd lose your license. And it was in addition to the hours that you're supposed to do anyways for continued professional development. They made us do a 4-hour course on CRT, and I had to identify myself as a white male And yeah, I sat through that. So Weechie, there's a lot of manipulation going on at the law society level because they control your license, which means they can control whatever they want you to do through threat of losing your license. And then judges in Canada, we have justices and judges. So those are the two types of people that can sit on the bench and review your thing. Justices, you'll find them mostly in small claims court, and then judges exclusively in Superior Court and in the Supreme Court. I think this is a racket because judges have to be lawyers. Full stop. They don't let anybody become judges. You have to be a lawyer first. So this becomes a very closed group and a very, very tight club of people controlling the legal system. And I don't like that. Justices don't have to be judges. They can be, but I mean, lawyers, but they, the ones that really matter are the judges, because even a justice can make a decision and then it can be appealed by a judge and then overruled. So judges, which are lawyers, they actually control this system. And it bothers me because I became a paralegal. I went to law school, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm licensed on a P1 license, but I'm not on an L1 license, which means I can't be a judge. And I don't think that's right. I think we should actually remove that requirement, and judges are elected and they're based on their community involvement and the community support. That's where the judges should come from, because they should come from your neighbors. But that's not the case. You have to be a lawyer and you're being appointed. So that's frustrating to me. I'm sorry, Paula. I'm just going to do these stars, okay? What about the RCMP and the investigation of Trudy and the not investigating SNL? Well, that's lucky, right? She's gone now. They replaced her, but she was the what were the commander or something like that? Commissioner. Yeah, the commissioner. She it was her. No, she was friends with Trudeau, buddy, and you actually saw that in the POEC at how much butt covering she was doing for him. So yeah, not surprised. I don't know about this new person, okay, at all. I don't know anything about this new person at all. So if you guys are listening, maybe he's good, maybe he's not. But I can certainly point to Lucky, and I can point to her POEC testimony to show you that she was having the government's back, and she's not. There was no separation between the police and the government when she was involved. There was like a deal and a partnership going on where they cooperated far more than you would expect cooperation to happen. I would like to have seen RCMP cooperate far more with the OPP, because the OPP had some good data and intelligence back then on the convoy days. But that's why I'm going to point to Prairie. It's going to be Lucky, and let's find out if this next one's just as bad or not. And we won't really know until we see them in action on something. So the China stuff, the interference, let's see what happens. How many officials? Okay, sorry. Yeah, we addressed that one. And I don't know if there's an answer to that or not. And I don't know if that means it's bad or good, because I'm not in their club. I'm an outside, and I can see it. But, the Shriners, that's a good thing. That's a charity division of the Masons. But I don't know enough about it. And I have no idea. I would expect quite a few. But again, I don't know, Weechie, if that's a bad thing or not. I honestly don't find Canadians are nicer or meaner than anybody else. I do find them more polite, okay? But that isn't necessarily as good as honest if you're just going along to get along. Absolutely. And I think you mentioned a comment that maybe we're more passive aggressive with that apology stuff. But it is something that I think about a lot. Like, we have hockey, which is fighting, and there's lots of violence, and we're totally cool with that. In fact, if you try and take that out of the sport, you'll be met with violence. So that stays in. So we definitely have a culture here in Canada that we can express ourselves through our fists, and that's appropriate under certain circumstances. For example, somebody tripped you. Okay, this is our culture. We do agree with that. But when it comes to outside of the hockey rink, super, super passive and non-aggressive. And I wonder if that's why not enough people are standing up. And that's why people see someone standing up and say, they're doing the wrong thing. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be more polite. You should be asking the government for permission to have your career. You shouldn't be trying to force it. So I wonder if that's kind of just weaved into us on purpose. For the purpose of being a passive and more accepting society, because Canada is one of the most liberal countries in the world, in the entire world. Like, this is one thing that we're excelling at, and then that's progressive liberalism. We're we're actually like the poster child for that, for the WEF. So yeah, I wonder if very early the Canadian mentality was to be passive and apologetic, even when it's not your fault. We've all done that before. Someone will bump us, so we are faulted, and we will say sorry. So yeah, I wonder if that's just kind of the mentality that they weaved in us nice and early. I'm not saying it's horrible, because I like the idea that we are polite, as Alan's putting it here. But polite to what point, though? Polite to the point of not fighting back and not protecting yourself? That might be a little bit too far. Peter has a comment here. Established media punishes a guy like Alex Jones, a public dissenter, so his followers lose steam, demoralize effort. In my opinion, Alex is their asset. Yeah, so all of that I agree with. Okay, yes, absolutely. The media will do it, and what the media is doing is they're tainting him. They're tainting him. So if you follow and believe or recycle or recite any of his talking points, then they can also paint you with that brush. So if you say, hey, the frogs are gay, blah, 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 like if you start talking like that, they're going to say, okay, well, then you must also believe that Sandy Hook was a fraud and all this kind of stuff, and you're kooky. That's part of the tainting of him, Peter, and I agree with you that that's happening to make him look like a public, or because he is a public dissenter. But I also believe he has too much information to still have a heartbeat, and he's sharing too much that if he was counter to them, it just simply would be a problem that went away. That's where I'm having difficulty, because I do believe that that is what they would have done if they did not want him to do that. They are that powerful. So that's kind of where I'm split on Alex. And also, I don't like being yelled at. I'm not a yell at me type of guy. So I prefer the messages to come out calm, kind of like what Kevin was saying there, because I want to have like a civil discourse, and I don't want to have to filter through being yelled at. So it's another thing that kind of turns me off on him. And that might also be by design, because he would attract really frustrated people that can stand it and not the other ones. And then when he's represented by his fans, they're going to be the frustrated, loud ones. So it makes the entire thing look like a bunch of angry people. And then that makes it easy to group them together and point to them as some others. But at the end of the day, Peter, I don't know. But I think the fact that he's still preaching means maybe he's connected, or at least they're protecting him. Schmidt House, Zach, how you doing, bud? The more and more stuff that O'Keefe leaks to the public is proving the conspiracy theory is correct. Yeah, the only thing between a conspiracy theory and the truth is about 6 to 12 months. This is like a conveyor belt. This is a conveyor belt of it gets on the conveyor belt. It's on the category of conspiracy theory, and time is the movement of that belt. And then at the end, it turns into truth. Actually, it didn't turn into anything. It just entered the truth category. So it was always the way it was. It's just now being looked at differently. And you're right, Zach. Looking forward to seeing you tonight. I think you confirmed for tonight. So everybody go ahead and make sure that you set a reminder for tonight. I've already posted the video link, so you can go ahead and put a little reminder on it. And Zach will be there covering Saskatchewan politics. Weechie, peeps don't realize Canadian central bank digital currency. I think that's what it is. Central bank digital currency. Banking happens in Canada. The banks get the banks to say no. I don't think there's a way to do it, Weechie. I don't think there's a way to get the banks to say no. I kind of agree with Kevin on this one, that it's kind of already set. I'm not saying accept it. I'm not saying roll down and put your belly up in the air and say, okay, this is great. I'm saying stick to cash as long as you can, push back at the local shops. Don't accept it. Don't buy into it. Don't go and get it. Don't put your investments into it. I guarantee you they're going to do something like this. They're going to say, hey, here's a CBDC savings account, and it's got these great returns, and we match this amount on it if you put your money there, because they're going to entice you to move your cash from other mechanisms and other instruments into this one. So when you start seeing those ads come up and say, hey, CBDC is a great way to save for your future, they're in full swing. They're going to, they're a marketing company. They're collecting customers. It's one of the things you do when you're building business. Hannah, welcome back. I'm so happy. We met you yesterday. I saw lots of your questions. Welcome back. You came through Randy, so I'm really appreciating that we're picking up new followers here, and you're coming back. Thank you, Hannah. Do you think investing in gold or silver would be good? Question. So according to Kevin, yes, he's highlighting gold. Okay, this isn't a financial advice program, but Kevin absolutely shared his portfolio and what he was doing, and yeah, he has gold in it. It's stable. It's always going to be stable. He believes it's always going to be an asset that holds its value. It's not going to grow super quick. So if you're looking for fast returns, that won't be your mechanism. But he did say for long-term stability, that's where he puts some of his money. So Hannah, it's not advice, but that's what Kevin's opinion, and that's what his portfolio is. And it could be working for him. I don't know. He could be successful in a trader or not. What I do know is he's really smart, and he's rarely wrong. I actually don't even know if I've caught him on wrong yet. And not that I'm trying to, it's just we tried to get truth out here. And I think he's pretty good there, Hannah. Hey, Prairie. I'm talking about the new news of the RCMP refusing to release records of the SNC sailing. The matter was still under investigation, but have now changed it to say they are not investigating. Oh, no, Prairie. That's not good news. That's not good news. That just means a little bit more of the same. Different face, same job. The role is to protect the government and not the people. This is a tough one, Prairie, because the POEC, they were talking about centralizing even the police enforcement, and they were also talking about having mechanisms in place to take over local police stations. So there's definitely centralization in Canada on our policing and enforcement. So this is definitely something we need to keep an eye on. And if this is actually accurate, I'm not saying you're not accurate, Prairie, because you're just reporting what you know. What I'm saying is I wonder if what you read is accurate. Saying that they're refusing to release records and then there's no investigation. That's terrible. That's terrible. This is why we need somebody like independent, because the canary will scream and be very loud about this. And there is none right now. And Prairie, do you have any conservative members who are talking about this and pushing it? Is anybody out there talking about it? I would like to know. Gov Corrupt. Justin. Oh, no. So Kevin corrected me. So there's a comment here from Kevin about my misunderstanding about Trudeau Sr. So it was Trudeau Jr. So he says Trudy sold gold was referring to Justin Trudeau. The last of Canada's gold reserve was sold in 2015 under Mark Charney. And by the way, Kev, you asked that question of Randy about Mark, and he says possible Liberal leader may succeed Trudeau. So we are having the banker that sold our gold possibly becoming the leader of the Liberal Party. Oh my. Thank you, Kevin, for dropping that note in so that we can correct that. I really, really appreciate that. Ellen, so you don't like yelling. Friday will be a tough one for you, LOL. Yeah. Well, he's loud and boisterous, okay? Yeah. Chris is, but also Jeremy is as well, but he wasn't on the show. So when he came on the show, he was himself, but he certainly has a persona. And by the way, if you didn't catch Jeremy's Monday episode, do it. There's something going on. He's either preparing to take on a very emotional journey, or he's fed up with an emotional journey. But if you listen to his episode on Monday, he's contemplating something, and it's powerful to him. But it was also very appealing to me. I listened to an episode of his about a year ago or so, a few of them, and I found them to be very not for me. Okay, it wasn't the messaging so much; it was choice of words and the excitability and other things that didn't appeal to me. But the episode I watched and completely watched, start to finish, on Monday. This is a different guy. He's far more powerful with his messaging now, and he's definitely going to continue to entice people like me to come and check it out. So I don't mind, boisterous and loud, but Jones yells like all the time, and it was wearing on me. And also some of his messaging I'm not on board with. Some of them are pretty extreme. Doesn't mean he's not right. It just means I'm not find myself appealing to it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Chris. There's a lot of people on Twitter who want to share their opinion about Chris. It even led to a false allegation against me by some lady who, I don't know, she's got a bone to pick and she's out there to try and make Chris look bad and anybody else that associates with him. But I'll just say to you all one more time, my guests on my show, I'm not endorsing them. I'm not picking people that I like. I'm not going out there trying to give platforms to people that I'm trying to support and expand their reach. I'm meeting with anybody that I think is interesting and that wants to talk to me. So that is going to be meaning that there may be people on here that you'll raise an eyebrow to, but give me the benefit of the doubt that anybody I bring on here, there's some value there that we're going to get out of there, whether we agree with them or not on the entire level of their ideology. But at times, conversation does help, and I'm here to learn. So being yelled at or not, I think Chris is going to be a lot of fun, and I definitely do prescribe to a lot of his messaging, but I don't know all of his messaging. So I just want to put that out there that I don't know all of his messaging, and that's what I'm hoping to find out on Friday is a little bit more about stuff I don't know about. But that election is on Monday, so he's going to be pretty excited to get that election going on. Weechi, groups working with some credit unions towards non-compliance, cooperating. Yes, trades outside the sandbox, shop local, producers, skills, etc. Yeah, the banking system early in Canada, it was very local. It was co-ops. Insurance as well. Insurance was handled locally. It wasn't national at all because we take care of ourselves. That's basically what that was. So community-based banks and community-based lending and community-based insurance. We don't have that anymore. It's kind of been stripped away. A lot of provinces went for provincial insurance, and some of them went for private, but it's not local anymore. The branches might be local, but not the business itself. So, yeah, it would be cool if we parallel economy, we started to be more local, because I don't know. I'm still noodling this one, Weechi, on how we can non-violently compel our government to make changes, because I think that is a path forward. Anything else you try and do, you're going to get booted pretty quick. But I'm thinking about it, Weechi. It took my kids out of school. I'm not on the grid. Those are minor protests. I don't want to be part of your system. Those are messages right there. Hannah, I didn't think the RCMP was investigating Trudeau. He would be more defensive. He has them in his pocket. I think you're right, Hannah. And I think we saw that during the POEC too, with Lucky. And now we're seeing this again with SNC. And it's not even the first time that that's come up. Are we going to see? Yeah, I'm distraught on this one, Hannah, because the RCMP that I saw in the POEC was not working for the people. The reports were wrong. They ignored good information. They acted aloof when it came to the OPP. There was a lot of things I didn't like there at all, OPP, very different story. Basically, every witness from the OPP I was impressed with, but not the RCMP, not the OPS, not the Parliamentary Police Services as well. They didn't impress me, and certainly not the Prime Minister's office. That didn't impress me. Please continue to check out the Coos guys in jail. Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to stay on that one, Hannah. Absolutely, 100%. God be with them. They need more attention. They need more people looking into it. The media's not. Nobody else is. So I'm absolutely going to do what I can there. And that even means going down the Lethbridge at times to be there. I'm going to do everything I can there, Hannah. I think that is one of the major stories that's been swept under the rug that can't be. And Alberta, I'm so shocked that Alberta is kind of moot on this one. We really should be a lot louder. So Hannah, thanks for keeping poking on this. Thanks for reminding everybody in the chat that this is still going on. And please, if you can do that every single day to keep everybody reminded, Hannah, you can be our Alberta canary for the Coots issue and keep reminding people that that's happening. I'm going to jump to a chat here. Yes, bankers rule the world. So are we in a wrong profession there, Gov? Want to open a bank? The bank of KevJ, JKev, KJ, JK? JK, there you go. Just joking bank. Just kidding. Oh, yeah, just kidding bank. The JK bank. Maybe. And then, yeah, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's see if there's Hannah. Branches cooperating. There we go. So Weechi likes that. Yes, branches cooperating. Bow Valley Credit Union trying hard to resist the central bank digital currency, other locally as well on board. Yeah, but I like to see that. I'm a credit union type of guy. Okay, credit union when we're in Ontario, credit union out here. There's some pros, lots of pros with that, and there's some cons. But the only cons are if you want to work banking on a national level, it becomes complicated. And credit unions, not yet, and I know that they're working on it. They're putting together a credit union network so that your members can kind of take their history with them to another credit union, because right now that doesn't happen. So all our history with our other bank got reset when we moved to this one. So we have to reestablish relationship and credit and all that stuff. But that's just a small con. The pro is it's local, it stays local, it's for the community. We are shareholders in the organization as members. So there's a whole bunch of pros for that one. And then yes, please do. You are in Alberta. I am. Yep, I'm in Alberta. I'm up by Breton, over by Drayton Valley, in between the two of them, closer to Buck Creek than Drayton Valley. But yeah, I'm up there, and it wouldn't take me long to get down to Lethbridge and really cover this. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up again, Hannah. So, all right, so that's the end of the chats. And what I'm going to do now is I got some thank yous to do. So I wonder if my thank you thing can pop up. Let's see. I'll give it a little bit of time and see if it will pop up. I don't know. I don't know if I'm hands-free. Oh, look at that. Magic. So I want to say thank you to our chat today. So we had Ellen, Azario, Prairie, Tammy, Weechie, Peter. Those are basically the core of the family right there. Clay is missing on that list. Yeah, there's a couple other regulars that aren't on that list right now. But a good chunk of you are here. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Medical Errors Interviews Podcast. If you're still there and you're still listening, go on to Twitter, hit my message and send me a message, because I'm trying to collect a whole bunch of podcasters for my Canada Day special. And what I'm going to offer you is the thank you can go away, by the way, the Magic Lady. What I'm going to offer you there is the chance to broadcast and share your podcast with the Canadians during that episode. The idea for the Canada Day special, in addition to having a bunch of heroes come on and say hello to Canada, and there's quite a few already said yes, it's also to introduce Canadians to podcasts, Twitter Spaces, and other voices in Canada, so that they can become aware that there's an alternate source for information. So Medical Errors Interviews Podcast, pretty descriptive title there. You'd be welcome to try and do that. So hit me up on my Twitter. I've opened my DMs. You can go ahead and send me a message. And let me know if you want to be on that special and announce and share with Canada what your podcast is about, to pick up some new viewers. And then also, thank you very much, Hannah. Really great to see you show up. We met you yesterday, and you must like this. And I take it you're in Alberta as well, because you're very keyed in on the big Alberta issues. Whereabouts are you? If we have time to throw that in the chat, I wouldn't mind knowing that. Yes, we miss Clay for sure. Yeah. I think he might be on a different shift again, because that's what happened last time. But normally Clay's in here helping me drink my coffee. So if I don't see him in a chat in the first few minutes, I'll just go to the coffee. But if I see him, I'll wait for him. But we miss you, Clay. I know you listen to it. So here's a little bit of love from the Plaid family. We miss you when you're not here, and we notice. See ya at 5, if I remember. Thanks all in the chat, and Jason and the team. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Hannah, oh, you're in Winnipeg. Okay. My old stomping grounds, Fort Richmond Collegiate, is where I went to high school. FRC, it's I want to say Pembina. Yeah, it's off Pembina. Pembina runs south through the city. And I also lived in St. Vital. So when I first went to Winnipeg as a kid, it was St. Vital. Went to school there at Darwin Elementary. And then we moved to Fort Richmond, went to high school there. And then we moved to Tuxedo. And then I had to take a bus to high school. And then I left Winnipeg and went east to the GTA area, because Winnipeg wasn't offering me technical work. I couldn't find a job in computers. One great city, Winnipeg. Yeah, it's a good city. Hard working people there, lots of music. Basement bands is a big thing in Winnipeg because of the cold, and it's really all you can do is go sit in your basement, have a beer, and play some music. But Winnipeg is great for that. And Zahena, which does the music for our intro and outro, he also lives in west of Winnipeg. So Manitoba music, it's pretty big there. And then Perry says, Hannah, nice to meet you. Former Pegger, now in Westman. Very cool. Yeah, there's a lot of Winnipeggers in here. I was one as well. And just to be clear, as everybody knows, I am a Canadian mutt. I lived in Nova Scotia. I lived all over the GTA. I lived up by Ottawa. I lived in Winnipeg for quite a while. I grew up in Saskatoon. I'm now in Alberta. I'm touching this country. I'm living in this country, and I'm loving this country. So if you get the opportunity to kind of do stuff like that, do it. But it also gives me the ability to meet people from all over the place and say, hey, yeah, I know that place too with you. So it's great. It's great to have such exposure to Canada coast to coast. And if you haven't driven across Canada, it takes about a week. And that's if you're dedicated, like driving a lot. But if you can RV it or take a train across Canada, I would recommend that. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Well, thank you all very much. We're at the end of the show. We got through the chats. We got through the thank yous. Padge has been doing a wonderful job clicking all the buttons, and I don't even have to do the goodbyes anymore. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe. See, look at that. Isn't that amazing? Go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Most of you have, but if you haven't, go ahead and just subscribe. Medical Vaccine Injury Podcast, which your name was there. Make sure you subscribe. There's going to be lots of episodes like this. We live stream on Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And I'm now 2 away from LinkedIn. So please, guys, if you're on LinkedIn, go find my LinkedIn page. It's Jason Levine MP. And give me 2 more follows, because once we get to 150 follows on LinkedIn, I can broadcast to that page instead of my personal page. If you like it, clip it. Remember to do the time coding. And in fact, I'm just going to take a second to show you how to do that, in case you don't know how to do that. It's pretty simple, and it's a great way to share clips. So Tammy, I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up your video because it was just handy there. But we'd like to see you, so that's all good. So let's say you just find a spot and you're like, okay, this spot here works for us. What you can do is come down to here. This is share. And let's say this is the beginning of a conversation point. You say share, and then you click this little box that says start at. You copy that. And then now that's a time encoded link. So what will happen is if somebody clicks on that link, they're going to go jump right to that point in the conversation. I prefer this over making clips because there's a whole bunch of reasons. If we make a clip, all the views are on that clip and stuff like that, and it's not helping the main video. It takes a lot of time to make clips. We got to download, chop up, re-encode, upload. There's a lot of effort in that. And we tried for about a week, Padge and I, of doing exactly that. It added about 3 hours to the day that we didn't have. But what we've started to do now is we're starting to mark important points and important conversations. And then we're going to do these jump links for that. So I'll send out a tweet that says, hey, look at Randy saying that he got a ticket. And then there'll be a jump clip to that. So I encourage you to do the same thing because a jump clip link allows them to continue watching past where you would have stopped the clip. So maybe you would have clipped like 2 minutes, but the full conversation's 10, and then people get to enjoy that. And it also allows them to jump around the video. So maybe they like that clip and they want to just jump to the beginning of the video. By pointing them to the main video, that allows them to do that. And then, of course, for the analytics of YouTube itself and Rumble itself, this is a good way to keep drawing attention to videos and getting them played again instead of clipping it all over the place. So this is what we're going to try for now. We sincerely don't have the bandwidth to do a bunch of clips. And I know people will like them and they prefer them, but I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and get back into the long format, because this is where you get more information. Stay away from the OCD type of thing of 2 or 3 minutes. That's not enough context to get even a single point. So I'm kind of also trying to encourage people to spend more time and listen to more of the conversation and context, because that's going to help you get it. Having a cool clip about Kevin saying, let's go ahead and use oil as the reserve may sound cool to somebody, but may not understand that we're talking about, well, the fact that we got rid of our gold and we don't have that as reserve anymore. So I think it's best to just point people to the main video with jump points. So you can start here if you want to get to that. But as far as clips are, that's not on the horizon anymore. We tried, and it took just too much effort. And we're not afraid of the effort. We've got lots to do to get you this show in addition to our actual normal lives. So we're doing our best, Padge and I, to balance all of that. And right now, clips isn't on the our abilities right now. If we had someone else dedicated just for making clips, then yeah, we would be pumping them out all the time. But we don't. We are limited on that. And there's a couple more comments. Tammy says, oh, sorry there, Paula. Yeah, we'll keep doing your thing first. Join our Discord. Jump on there, especially if you're interested in the Coot stuff, because we're definitely going to be creating a thread for that. And that's where I'm going to start pushing the people that have information, and the information they give me, we'll start putting and collecting it there. And then as a Plaid family, we will review it and do what we can there. And I believe that's the end of our little Automac stuff. Cool. Oh, thanks for showing us. I had no idea how to do it. Yeah, it's pretty simple, right? That little checkbox is really handy for just getting to right where you want. And also let me show you another trick there, Tammy, because this is something that was frustrating for me too until I kind of learned my lesson. So let's say you found this clip and you're trying to catch it, but it's hard to get it exactly right. Like you're trying to get the little bar, you're moving the bar. And especially on a large video, moving this bar becomes difficult. It will jump like 10 seconds at a time. Well, if you're close enough, come up to the address bar, drop it into the address bar. Oh, wow, you can't see this on screen. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm up in the address bar and it has the number at the end. Just take a couple seconds off. So you can change the 2 to a 0 and it will bring it back a second or two.
I said I've never been political before.
So she started off with, I never said I'd be political before. Well, let's say we wanted a little bit before that. I'll come to 1 second before. I'll just change the number, hit enter.
So much, like I said, I've never been political before.
And there we are. We're 1 second sooner. So to fine tune that clip, it can be hard with the bar if you're going to scroll it because it's a 3-hour or 2-hour video. But if you just change the number in the address bar and then use that, you'll nail it. You'll nail it. It's a fast way to kind of get to exactly where you need to be. And then we got another one from Weechi here. Agreed. Longer vids for details, but peeps losing attention span, no patience. Great job. Prayers for farmers, busy time of year. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm working on there, Weechi. I'm trying to get them to get out of that OCD short attention span thing because they really should. Joe Rogan and other shows are doing some long format, and I think this is where you can get good information. But yeah, I hear you, Weechi. And a lot of people who do follow me, they want to watch them all. So it's like 4 hours a day minimum, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. So that's like 4 hours of catching up on Jay. So I do understand that some people can't get through it all the time. It's hard for me and I'm doing it live. So I get it. Teaching with Tammy. There we go. There's a fun title. Teaching with Tammy on Tuesday. So we got the triple T. Maybe Tammy. But yeah, appreciate that. And I'll do more things like that to help you out here. I'm already confused, she says, LOL. Is that for the time thing? You'll get it. But maybe for now, just click that checkbox and share that link, and that's where you start. But thank you very much, Hannah. All right, now I'm really... Oh, we should continue to use YYC in our tweets. Absolutely, Peter. Anything that you put in there for YYC, that helps. That helps, absolutely. And what also helps is putting my name in. So at Jason Levine MP. So you can say something like, I watched this on Jason Levine MP's episode, and it's by far the biggest piece of information we've ever released in the history of the world. Something like that. Not so hyperbolic, but something like that would also help. It helps get people to know where the clip comes from. And I also get notified. So I get lots of notifications now on Twitter. But if I see it, Peter, then I can respond to you and say thanks and that kind of thing. All right, let me queue up our closing video. Actually, do we want to take 1 second? Because there's a few more people here. Let me see who we got here. Yeah, it's basically my full crowd. I missed my opportunity to play my 1 month video on the Randy crowd, which shows all the guests that we had. But yeah, go ahead and jump onto my YouTube or whatever, and you can go through the history of guests. So if you're new to this channel, go check it out. There's quite a few excellent interviews, and I would highly recommend that you check it out. And we got month 2 is looking just as good. And do I have somebody to announce for you that you don't know about yet? One, but I'll save that one because it's all the way into July 10th. So we got several days to go before we can get to that one. But anyways, thank you all very much. And thank you for joining me this morning. And we ran a little bit late. And also thank you to Kevin for joining me. So you guys have yourself a great day. We love you all. And remember, God bless.